The night the Alpha King fell, the kingdom held its breath. Rain poured like broken glass from the heavens, drowning the scent of blood that covered the battlefield. The sky roared with thunder as if even the moon couldn't bear to watch what had become of its chosen child. Alpha King Rael Thornhart, the wolf feared by every rival. The one whose howl could shake mountains, lay on his knees in the mud, his strength bleeding into the soil. His golden armor, once radiant, now cracked and soaked in crimson. His breath came in jagged gasps, his eyes clouded with pain. No one dared move toward him. Not his guards. Not his council. Not even the healers. Because every spell, every medicine, every sacred chant had failed. The curse that had struck him was unlike anything known. It was no blade, no poison, no spell from this realm. It was something older, a shadow that had crept into his blood, when the enemy witch whispered his true name before she died, and now it was killing him. He had fought wars, conquered nations, and defied gods. But that night, even the Alpha King, the man who had never bowed, fell before the weight of the curse. When they carried him back to the palace, the kingdom of Varelia wept. The throne stood empty. The moon temple was lit with 1,000 candles. And in every village, wolves howled in mourning, because they knew their king was fading. Days passed. Healers came from across the lands. High priestesses of the moon, warriors from the bloodline clans, even sorcerers who once swore never to serve wolves. All tried, all failed. The curse devoured every cure like hunger devours hope. And through it all, the Alpha King refused to die. He lay upon his firm bed, massive, carved from obsidian and bone, eyes half open, his body trembling as if fighting an invisible storm. The mark of the curse burned across his chest like a brand, black veins spreading outward, crawling up his neck. Each night, his wolf roared inside him, feral and agony clawing at the cage of his body. But no one could help. Not even the moon. Until she came. She entered the palace on the 7th night. No guards stopped her, they didn't even see her. Her scent was faint, almost invisible like rain on cold stone. Her steps were quiet, her presence small, almost ghost-like. But her eyes were pure silver. Her name was Lyra Vale, the rejected Omega, once part of the Moonveil pact, now outcast, branded as unwanted. Rejected by her mate on the night of her binding. Left to wander the wilds with nothing but her hands and her gift. A gift she had never learned to use. She had been called strange, cursed, too quiet, too soft for a wolf. But her touch carried something ancient, a warmth that could soothe pain. A power she didn't understand. The guards only realized she was there when she was, already standing beside the dying Alpha's bed. The high priestess moved to stop her, shouting, "No one touches the king." But Rael, half conscious, half mad from pain, turned his head at the sound of her voice. For a moment, the curse stilled. The black veins froze. Lyra looked down at him. His skin was burning cold. His heartbeat uneven, fading. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't need to. She reached out, her hand trembling, and placed her palm over the wound that had refused to heal. The moment she touched him, the air changed. The torches flickered. The room filled with the scent of rain and lightning. The mark on his chest glowed, not black, not red, but silver. The healers gasped. The high priestess dropped her staff. The wolves standing guard felt their knees weaken, because the impossible was happening. The curse was recoiling. Rael's body arched, his breath seizing. His wolf inside him, the beast that had been roaring for release, suddenly went silent. The darkness that had gripped his veins began to fade, pulled toward her hand like ink drawn into light. Lyra didn't move. Her eyes were glowing now, her hair whipping in the unseen wind that filled the chamber. The silver light from her palm spread, wrapping around his body, mending the torn soul beneath the flesh. The Alpha King gasped, a sound between a growl and a cry, and then the curse shattered. The black mark dissolved into dust. The wounds sealed. The silence after was heavy, holy, eternal, and when his eyes opened again, they met hers. Golden. Silver. Alpha. Omega. King. Outcast. For a moment, no one breathed. Then he whispered, barely a sound, but enough to silence the entire palace. "You?" His voice cracked raw. "What are you?" Lyra lowered her hand, trembling. "No one," she said. "Just a wolf who shouldn't have been here." But the way he looked at her, the way his wolf stirred, said otherwise. The bond between them didn't exist. It wasn't fate. It wasn't prophecy. It was something deeper, something the moon hadn't planned, a claim that came from the soul, not the stars. That night, the Alpha King rose for the first time in weeks. The kingdom celebrated, the priests declared a miracle. But behind the cheers, whispers began to spread about the strange Omega who healed the king, about the light that no magic could explain, about the way the king's eyes now glowed not gold, but streaked with silver. Rael himself couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Every heartbeat carried her scent, faint, sweet, dangerous. His wolf stirred restlessly, pacing inside him, whispering words he couldn't yet accept. And far away, in her small cottage by the edge of the forest, Lyra sat in silence, her hands shaking. The mark of her touch still glowed faintly silver on her palm. She had saved him. But in doing so, she'd awakened something inside both of them, something no bond, no rejection. No law of wolves could ever undo Dot, because the moment her hand touched his heart, she didn't just heal in Dot, she claimed it. The sun had barely risen over the crimson walls of the Verilian Palace when the bells of the Moon Temple rang. For the first time in a month, they didn't toll in mourning, they sang in triumph. The Alpha King lived. The news spread faster than fire through dry fields. From the capital to the farthest mountain dens, wolves bowed their heads in awe, their howls echoing through dawn skies. The king who had been cursed beyond cure had risen again, but the story they told was not of his strength. It was of hers, the mysterious Omega whose touch had brought the dead back to life. The ghost woman with silver eyes who healed the unhealable and vanished into mist. Lyra, Veil, the rejected one. No one knew where she came from. No one knew her bloodline. But every pack whispered her name like both prayer and fear, and in the heart of his fortress, the Alpha King, Rael Thornhart, could not erase her from his thoughts. He had awoken that night in a storm of confusion and fire. His body had been whole again, his breath steady, his veins free of the curse that once ate them alive. Yet beneath his skin burned something else, something wild, electric, alive. Every beat of his heart carried the scent of rain. Every breath brought the echo of her voice. And his wolf wouldn't stop calling for her. For days he tried to ignore it. He trained. He hunted. He met with his council. He acted like the king they expected. But at night, when the palace grew quiet, he would hear it, the low, aching growl of his own beast whispering the same word over and over. Find her, find her. Sometimes he swore he could feel her touch still glowing on his chest, a warmth that shouldn't exist, pulsing like a second heartbeat beneath his own. He tried to sleep. He couldn't. He tried to fight it. He failed, because somewhere deep inside him he knew the truth. She hadn't just healed him. She had bound him. On the 7th day after his awakening, the Alpha King broke his silence. The High Priestess of the Moon knelt before him in the throne hall, her golden robes flowing like light. We give thanks to the goddess for your restoration. My king, the people believe the moon herself touched you through that woman. Rael's gaze hardened. It wasn't the moon who saved me. The priestess hesitated. Then who? His voice dropped. A wolf no one believes in. An Omega the moon forgot. The priestess frowned, unsure whether to call it heresy or truth. If she is mortal, then she is blessed beyond reason. But if she is something else, she is not a god, he said. She is more. And with that, he left the hall. That evening, under a blood-orange sunset, he rode out from the gates with no guards, no advisors, only his instincts. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't have to. The bond was enough. Every mile carried her scent, faint, hidden beneath earth and rain, but there. His wolf could taste it in the wind. He followed the trail through forests and mist, through streams that whispered her name. By the time the moon rose, he had reached the edge of the southern woods, the forgotten border between kingdoms. There he saw a light. A cottage half buried in ivy, a small garden trembling in the wind. And through the window, he saw her, Lyra Veil. She was kneeling by the hearth, her hands cupped over a bowl of glowing water, her face pale, tired, but breathtaking in the soft gold of the firelight. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and her lips moved in quiet prayer. He dismounted without sound, his boots sinking into the wet soil. Every step he took felt heavier, not with fear, but with something older, something like fate breathing down his neck. When she finally looked up, her silver eyes met his through the glass. The world went still. The door creaked open. Rain dripped from his cloak. Neither spoke. The silence between them was a living thing. Lyra's pulse raced. She hadn't expected him to find her, or maybe she had always known he would. The bond she felt that night in the palace had not faded. It had only grown louder, demanding, insistent. When he stepped closer, her breath caught. She could feel his presence, not just the power of an Alpha King, but something else. A warmth that made her wolf stir restlessly inside her chest. He stood before her, golden eyes burning like fire under smoke. And though he said nothing, the truth was written all over him. The king had found his healer. But it wasn't healing he wanted anymore. The days that followed blurred between tension and silence. Rael stayed, first claiming it was to thank her, then to ensure her safety, then with no excuse at all. He brought guards to watch the perimeter, but they knew better than to linger near her door. The bond between them made the air thick, alive with something neither could control. Lyra tried to ignore it. She kept to her work, gathering herbs, tending wounds, mending bones for the villagers who still dared visit her. But every time she touched someone, she felt his heartbeat in her fingers instead of her own. He tried to pretend she didn't haunt him. He sat by her window at night, saying nothing, just watching her move, her silver hair glinting in the firelight. Sometimes she'd glance back and catch his gaze. Neither looked away. There were no words left between them. Only the truth that pulsed louder with every second they pretended not to feel it. On the fifth night, the rain returned, heavy, endless, wild. The storm rattled the windows and shook the forest. Lyra couldn't sleep. She stood by the fire, her arms wrapped around herself, listening to the thunder. She didn't hear him enter, didn't need to. She could feel him. When she turned, he was already there. His hair wet from the storm, his eyes darker than the sky outside. He spoke her name once, soft, quiet, reverent. And in that sound was every secret they'd tried to hide. Her heart stumbled. Her breath broke. Because the bond between them wasn't supposed to exist. Not between an Alpha King and a rejected Omega, but destiny doesn't follow rules. It burns them. He stepped closer. She didn't move. The space between them trembled, charged with something raw and sacred. He raised his hand, and for a heartbeat she thought he would touch her. But he stopped just short of her skin. "Your touch saved me," he whispered, voice low and rough. "But it cursed me too." Her throat tightened. "Because you can't forget." "Because I don't want to." The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the world. Inside, silence wrapped around them like fire. She finally spoke, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to claim you." He shook his head. "You didn't claim me." His gaze burned into hers. "My soul did." Her wolf stirred, restless, aching. She could feel the pull of the bond now, stronger than before, wrapping around her heart like chains made of light. "I'm a rejected," she whispered. "Unmarked, unwanted, I don't belong in your world." Rael's voice broke. "Then I'll tear down my world until you do." Her eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. "You can't. I already am." Outside, lightning struck a tree near the cottage. The sound split the night in two. Inside, something broke. The wall they had built between them. The denial that had kept them apart. When he finally touched her, it wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate. A soul remembering what it had lost. The moment his skin brushed hers, the bond ignited. The silver mark on her palm flared. The scar on his chest burned in response. The light spread, swirling around them in waves of heat and moonlight. It wasn't magic. It wasn't fate. It was recognition. Their wolves roared as one. Bound by something older than the moon's laws, older than rejection, older than destiny itself. And when the storm finally quieted, when the night fell still again, they both knew the truth neither could ever undo. She hadn't just healed the Alpha King. She had awakened him. But fate, cruel and clever, was watching. Because every bond that defies the natural order demands a price. And in the shadows beyond the forest, a pair of eyes burned with fury, watching them through the rain. And in the shadows beyond the forest, a pair of eyes burned with fury. A pair of eyes burned with fury, watching them through the rain. Waiting for the moment to strike. The witch who cursed him had died, but her magic hadn't. And now, The darkness she left behind was stirring again, because no one cheats death without paying in blood, and soon the Alpha King would learn that love, even when it saves, can still destroy. The dawn after the storm came quiet. Too quiet. Mist clung to the trees like a ghost refusing to leave. The world around the small forest cottage felt wrong. Too still, too calm, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Inside, Lyra stirred awake to the soft crackle of dying embers. The air smelled of rain and smoke, and Rael sat near the window, half-dressed, the morning light cutting across the scars on his chest. The mark, once a curse, then a seal, glimmered faintly beneath his skin. But it wasn't gold anymore. It was darkening again. He didn't notice at first. He was lost in thought, staring at the forest beyond the glass, his wolf restless beneath his calm. Every breath came heavier, slower. Every beat of his heart pulsed with something foreign. Lyra rose silently, wrapping her shawl around her shoulders. When she stepped closer, she saw it, the black veins creeping out once more. Faint but real, spreading like shadows returning home. Her pulse quickened. The curse hadn't died. It had only slept out. She knelt beside him, her fingers brushing the edge of the mark. His skin was ice cold, his veins trembling beneath her touch. His eyes flicked toward her, and for a moment she saw it. The flicker of darkness behind the gold. The curse had found a new way to live. Through him, through their bond. That night in the palace had healed his body. But the bond between them had tethered the curse to something stronger, the connection that defied nature. When she gave him life, she unknowingly gave the curse an anchor. Now it pulsed between them like a heartbeat made of shadows. And every time they were near, it grew stronger. Lyra recoiled slightly, trembling. "It's still inside you," she whispered, her voice shaking though she hadn't spoken aloud in days. "It shouldn't be possible." Rael exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. "I can feel it. In my blood? In my dreams." He looked down at his hands, the faint shimmer of silver now threaded with black. "Every night I hear her voice again. The witch's, the one who cursed me." Lyra's heart clenched. She remembered the old stories, witches whose magic fed on emotion, on love twisted out of place. They never truly died. They lingered in the souls they marked. "She's using me," he said, voice low and hoarse. "Through you." Lyra's eyes widened. "Through me?" He nodded slowly, his expression dark. "When you healed me, you didn't destroy the curse. You absorbed it. You became its vessel." The words hit her like thunder. She stumbled back, shaking her head. "No, I felt the darkness leave you. And where did it go?" He asked quietly. "It didn't vanish. It found something stronger to cling to." Her breath caught. Her hands, the same hands that had glowed with silver light, were faintly trembling now. When she looked down, she saw the faintest hint of black veins beneath her skin. For a moment, the world blurred. The fire flickered out. A low hum filled the air, the sound of something awakening inside her. Her wolf stirred uneasily, growling at the unfamiliar presence now coiled around her soul. And in that heartbeat of terror, she realized the truth. The curse hadn't returned to destroy him, it had returned to claim her. Rael stood slowly, his expression torn between rage and regret. "You shouldn't have saved me." Lyra shook her head, tears brimming in her silver eyes. "I couldn't let you die. And now you'll die instead," he said softly. Almost to himself, the words hung heavy in the room. But neither of them looked away, because deep down, both knew the bond that brought life could just as easily bring death. Days passed in silence. Rael refused to leave her side. He watched the mark on her hands grow darker with every sunrise. Each time she used her gift to help a villager, the curse fed on it, spreading faster. The healers he summoned from the capital dared not touch her. Their spells burned to ash before reaching her body. Whatever power lived within Lyra now was beyond their control, divine and damned at once. The high priestess herself came to the forest. She examined Lyra's fading glow, her trembling hands, her haunted eyes, and said nothing for a long time. Finally, she looked at Rael. "The curse no longer belongs to you. My king has found its host." He clenched his fists. "Then we destroy it." The priestess's gaze turned grim. "To destroy it, you must destroy her." The silence that followed was thunderous. Rael's wolf growled deep in his chest. His eyes glowed fiercely, dangerously. Then we destroy the curse another way. The priestess bowed, her face pale. The moon does not permit such defiance. There is balance for a reason. If you break it again, the heavens will turn on us all. Rael turned away. Then let them. That night, Lyra sat alone by the river. The moonlight painted her skin silver, but the veins of black crawling up her arms betrayed what she was becoming. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat felt heavier. The curse whispered now, soft, seductive, cruel. It spoke in the witch's voice in the tone of temptation and sorrow both. You saved him, it murmured in her mind. Now he belongs to you. But you belong to me. Her fingers dug into the earth. The water before her rippled, black and shimmering like Tardot. She could see her reflection. Twisted and fading, her eyes no longer pure silver but streaked with shadow. She wanted to scream, to run, to end it. But when she closed her eyes, she felt him, Rael's heartbeat. The bond pulsing between them, warm, fierce, unbreakable, and she knew if she died, so would he. Rael found her there, kneeling at the water's edge. He said nothing. He just knelt beside her, his hand brushing her shoulder. The contact sent a shock through them both, the silver and black marks flaring at once. The curse reacted violently, feeding off their connection. The ground trembled, the air crackled, and for a moment, both of them were thrown backward. When they opened their eyes, the forest around them had changed. The river had frozen mid-current. The air shimmered like glass. And in the reflection of the ice, she stood, the witch. Her form was faint, ghostly, but her smile was sharp enough to wound. Did you think love could cheat death? She whispered, her voice echoing in their heads. You tied your souls, and now they burn together. Lyra's heart pounded. What do you want? The witch tilted her head, her eyes glimmering red. Balance. The Alpha's life was never yours to claim. Give him back to me and I'll release you. Rael growled low, his wolf flashing behind his gaze. Over my dead body? The witch's laughter rolled like thunder. Oh, child. That can be arranged. The ice cracked beneath them. The reflection shattered. And in that instant, the witch vanished, leaving behind only a faint whisper that chilled the air. You can't save him twice. They returned to the cottage in silence. Lyra's strength was fading fast. The mark on her hands had reached her neck, veins black and shimmering beneath her pale skin. Each breath came shorter, weaker. Rael watched her with helpless fury, his claws tearing into the wooden table as he tried to think. For the first time in his life, the Alpha King felt powerless. All his wars, all his victories meant nothing now. The only battle that mattered was being lost to something he couldn't strike down. She lay on the bed, her eyes half open, her hand reaching for him. Don't blame yourself, she whispered. This was always the price. He shook his head. No, you were never meant to pay for my sins. Her lips trembled into a faint smile. Maybe I was meant to save you even if it breaks me. And as she said it, the mark on his chest began to glow again, silver and black intertwining, like two souls refusing to separate. Rael's heart raced. No, he whispered. You're not leaving me. But the curse pulsed stronger, drawing energy from her body. Her light dimmed. Her heartbeat slowed in desperation. Rael pressed his forehead to hers. His wolf howled through his veins, demanding the bond obey him, demanding the curse return to him instead. For a moment it listened. The mark shifted. The black began to crawl from her skin back into his. But as it did, she gasped, her body arching. The pain tore through both of them like fire. The bond didn't just share life, it shared death. The curse didn't want one host anymore. It wanted them both. Outside, the moon turned red. The wind howled through the forest, carrying the sound of something ancient stirring awake. The witch's voice returned, faint but satisfied. Now you understand, little wolves. Love was the true curse all along. The light in the cottage flickered out. The air turned cold, and as Lyra's breath faltered, Rael's eyes turned to pure silver, burning with the fury of a wolf who had tasted both salvation and loss. He wasn't going to let her go. Not again, because an Alpha may bow to the moon, but not to death. The night after the curse awakened was colder than death. Wind tore through the forest like a wounded animal, and every shadow seemed to move. Whispering the name of the woman who had defied fate, Lyra lay still, Her skin pale as snow, her breath so faint it barely stirred the air. The black veins had reached her throat now, creeping like ink spilled over fragile glass. Rael sat beside her, unmoving, his eyes hollow but burning with something feral beneath the calm. His hand rested against her wrist, fingers trembling each time her pulse flickered. Every second felt like the edge of a blade pressed against his soul. The Alpha King who had fought wars, conquered empires, and broken gods. Decrees now sat helpless before one dying. Omega, but she wasn't just an Omega. She was his dot. The bond between them glowed faintly, silver and black threads, wrapping their hearts together like veins of fire. He could feel her pain, her fading heartbeat, the curse pulling at her life as though it were a candle it wanted to devour completely. He whispered her name once. No answer, then again louder, desperate. Still nothing. The cottage creaked under the weight of the storm outside. The moon, blood-red and merciless, watched from behind clouds. And then he snapped. Rael stood, his chair crashing backward. His wolf roared inside him, clawing to get out. The beast didn't understand loss. It understood claiming, protecting, surviving. And it demanded he fight. He tore open the cabinet, scattering herbs, crystals, and moonwater across the floor. His hands shook as he found the one thing she had forbidden him to touch. A vial of her own blood sealed in crystal. He remembered her words, never break it, no matter what happens. My blood remembers everything. He smashed it anyway. The moment the crystal shattered, the scent hit him, wild, sacred, unearthly. The blood inside was still alive, glowing faintly as it hit the air. It pulsed in rhythm with his heart. His wolf howled inside his mind. He didn't think. He acted. He sliced his palm open and pressed his bleeding hand against hers. The silver glow flared to life instantly, their blood merging, twisting, burning. The air cracked, and the entire cottage shuddered under the power that poured out of them both. He could feel her soul slipping away, but now he was reaching for it. His voice was a growl, a plea, a command to the heavens themselves, if death wants her. It will have to take me too. The ground trembled. The fire burst back to life on its own. The mark on his chest blazed silver while the veins in her neck turned molten gold. Rael could feel the bond deepening, not just tying their souls, but fusing them. He was pulling her into him, giving her his life, his strength, his curse. Somewhere in the darkness, the witch's laughter echoed faintly. So, the Alpha wants to challenge balance again, she whispered through the wind. You'll never understand. Blood cannot be shared without consequence. But Rael didn't stop. He poured his power into her body until his vision blurred, until his heart skipped beats, until his veins felt like they were filled with lightning. And then, finally, she gasped. Lyra's eyes snapped open, glowing gold for a split second before fading back to silver. Her body arched as she inhaled deeply, the black veins vanishing like smoke in sunlight. Rael fell to his knees, the energy leaving him all at once. His blood ran freely from his nose, his mouth, his wounds. But he smiled, faintly, brokenly, because she was breathing again. Lyra blinked in confusion, her voice barely a whisper. Rael, what did you do? He reached for her, his hands trembling. I did what I had to. You weren't going to die. Not while I breathe. Her eyes filled with tears. You shouldn't have done it. The bond is no longer just a bond, he interrupted softly. It's blood. And as he said it, they both felt it, a pull stronger than before. Their hearts beat in perfect sync, their wolves howling in the same rhythm. She could feel his pain as her own. He could sense her thoughts before she spoke them. It wasn't love anymore. It was oneness, but in that miracle of unity, something darker stirred, because the balance had been broken once more. The storm outside began to twist. Lightning turned black. The air tasted of iron and smoke. Lyra tried to stand, but her legs buckled. The ground beneath her feet cracked, veins of silver and shadows spreading out like spiderwebs. Her magic, the pure, moon-blessed energy, was fighting with the darkness now inside both of them. Rael caught her before she fell. Their hands locked, glowing with opposite energies, his silver, hers gold, both burning, both consuming. A voice echoed again. But this time it wasn't the witches. It was older, deeper. The sound of the moon goddess herself. You defy what I decreed, the voice said, shaking the air. You bind two destinies that were never meant to merge. Rael's voice rose, trembling with rage and pain. If your law demands her death, then damn your law. The goddess's voice grew colder. Then both of you shall share the curse. The Alpha and the healer, bound by blood, chained by sin. What one feels, the other will. What one loses, the other will bear. Lyra's eyes widened in terror. No, but before she could finish, the air exploded with light. They were thrown apart. The world dissolved into shadows and fire. When Rael opened his eyes again, the cottage was gone, replaced by an endless plain of white mist. Lyra stood across from him. Glowing faintly, her eyes filled with sorrow. Between them was a thin line of black flame, a mark of the moon's decree. He tried to cross it. The fire hissed and burned his feet. She shook her head, tears falling silently. We're bound, Rael. But not together. The goddess won't let us be one. Our blood keeps us alive, but our souls, her voice broke, are trapped between worlds. He reached for her, the flame licking at his hands, his arms, his heart. He didn't care. Then I'll burn, he said, voice trembling. As long as you're there on the other side. The mist thickened. The goddess's voice echoed again, final, cruel, divine. Your love will be your punishment. Every heartbeat, every breath, every longing will remind you what you cannot have. And with that, the world shattered. Rael woke on the forest floor, gasping, his body drenched in sweat and blood. The cottage was gone, reduced to ash. The moon had vanished behind clouds. Lyra was nowhere to be seen. But he could still feel her heartbeat, faint, distant. Echoing through the bond, she was alive, somewhere, but she was no longer in his world. He rose slowly, his vision blurring, his mark glowing faintly beneath his torn shirt. The forest around him was silent, haunted. He could feel her pain, her fear, her loneliness, all of it flowing through him as though it were his own. He whispered her name once, and the forest seemed to answer. A soft breeze brushing his cheek like her touch. Somewhere far away she whispered his name too. Bound by blood, separated by fate, and above them both the moon burned bright, watching, judging, waiting because the curse wasn't over. It had only evolved. Silence. Endless, blinding silence. Lyra woke in a world without sound. Her first breath came heavy, dragging through air that didn't move, through light that didn't belong to the sun. When her eyes opened, she saw nothing that resembled the forest she had died in. No trees, no moon, no stars. Only a sea of mist stretching infinitely in all directions, glowing faintly with silver fire. For a moment she thought it was death. But death didn't hurt. And her body burned, every vein alive, pulsing, trembling with power she didn't recognize. She pushed herself up from the cold ground. The mist shifted beneath her like breath. Far away, faint shapes flickered, shadows moving in circles, whispering her name, Lyra Vale. Each whisper came softer than the last, but every one of them carried something she knew too well, pain. The kind that doesn't kill you, the kind that makes you wish it had. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring into the nothingness. Her skin glowed faintly, marked by veins of gold and black that intertwined like vines under glass. Her reflection shimmered beneath her feet, shifting between the woman she remembered and something. Darker dots somewhere deep in her chest, the bond still pulsed. Rael, he was alive. His heartbeat echoed faintly through her soul, distant but undeniable, and yet, the more she reached for it, the more it slipped away, as if the universe itself refused to let her touch it. This was no heaven. It wasn't hell either. It was the in-between, the place where cursed souls were left to wander until time forgot their names. The moon goddess's punishment, days or maybe years passed. There was no time here. She walked through mists that turned into ruins, through fields of silver ash, through endless halls of glass that reflected every memory she wanted to forget. She saw her mother's face in one mirror, smiling before the exile. She saw the witch's laughter in another, cruel and sweet. She saw Rael standing over her dying body, covered in blood, eyes full of love and defiance. Every reflection spoke. Every reflection lied, but there was one truth that refused to fade. She was changing. The power inside her was growing, not fading. Each time she remembered pain, it answered. Each time she wept, the shadows around her moved closer, not to harm, but to obey. She began to understand what she had become when Rael bound their blood. He had tied her not only to life, but to everything that lay between life and death. She was no longer just an omega. She was something else now, the first of her kind. the bridge between the living and the lost, the Queen of Shadows. The first time she spoke to them, the shadows, her voice came out like wind breaking through glass. Why am I here? The mist stirred. Dozens of eyes opened within the dark, faint, silver, hollow. And then 1,000 whispers spoke together as one. Because you chose love over law. Lyra's heart clenched. I didn't choose to die. The voices murmured. You didn't die. You were taken. The balance demanded a price, and it was you. She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. Then let me go back. Let me take his place. The air trembled, cutting her off. A new voice rose, not the goddesses, not the shadows. Something older. Something born before both light and night. Do you think you were sent here to suffer, child of blood and fire? It asked. You were sent here to awaken. Lyra froze. Awaken? Your love broke the curse, the voice continued. But the moon could not allow the balance to crumble. So she buried you between realms, where neither death nor destiny could reach you. Her breath hitched. Then why do I still feel him? Because your bond was written in the oldest language there is, the voice said. Blood, and blood does not forget. The mist shifted. From within it stepped a shape, a tall, slender figure wrapped in silver light. A woman's outline, yet without a face. The air itself bent around her. Lyra knew instantly who it was. The moon goddess stopped for a long moment. They only stared at each other, one divine, one defiant. The goddess spoke softly. You disobeyed my law. You merged what was meant to remain apart. Now you stand between worlds, unclaimed by either. Lyra's voice broke. You call it disobedience. I call it love. The goddess's glow dimmed faintly. Love is the sharpest weapon mortals wield. It cuts what it touches, even its wielder. Then let it cut me again, Lyra said fiercely. Let it kill me if it must, but send me back to him. The silence that followed was heavy enough to drown in. The goddess tilted her head slightly, almost curious. You would trade eternity for suffering? Lyra didn't blink. For him, yes. The goddess's form flickered. Then understand the cost. The mist behind her began to churn. From it rose shapes, wolves made of light and smoke, their eyes burning silver. They circled Lyra, each carrying a fragment of power older than creation itself. These are the guardians of the veil, the goddess said. To command them, you must surrender what remains of your humanity. You will no longer walk as a woman. You will walk as shadow. You will see your mate, but he will not see you. You will touch his soul, but never his hand. Lyra's heart twisted. That's not life. The goddess's voice softened. It is the only kind left to you. For a moment, Lyra almost broke. The thought of walking beside him unseen, unheard, unloved, it was crueler than death itself. But then she remembered the sound of his heartbeat when she healed him. The way his voice trembled when he whispered her name. The promise in his eyes, you're not dying while I breathe. And she knew her answer, then make me shadow. The ground split open. The mist howled. The goddess raised her hand, and the wolves lunged forward not to attack but to merge. One by one, their forms dissolved into her body, wrapping her in fire and smoke and silver. Her scream echoed through both realms. Her light flared. Her soul tore itself in half. When the light faded, she was standing again, but different. Her skin glowed like pale moonstone. Her hair floated weightlessly, streaked with black fire. And her eyes, no longer silver, burned gold at the edges, flickering like candle flames in the wind. She could feel everything. The living world below. The dead world above. And his heart, beating wildly, lost somewhere between both. She was no longer trapped. But she wasn't free either. She was the passage, the bridge between the cursed and the saved. The Queen of Shadows. Meanwhile, far in the living realm, Rael Thornhart stood in the ruins of the old moon temple. His armor was blood-stained. His crown was gone. His hands trembled from exhaustion and rage. For 7 days he had searched for her. For 7 nights he had heard her heartbeat in his dreams. But every time he reached for it, it vanished. His kingdom was collapsing. His council begged him to return. The priests warned him to surrender her memory before the curse devoured them. Both, but he couldn't. He wouldn't. He had sworn to find her. Even if it meant tearing apart the heavens, and then As he knelt before the altar, she came, not in body, not in sound, but in shadow. Her silhouette rose behind him, soft as a sigh, golden eyes gleaming faintly in the dark. She reached for him, her fingers brushing the air near his face. He froze, heart hammering. He couldn't see her, but he felt her warmth. Familiar, sacred. The bond's pulse returned. Faint but alive, he whispered her name, and though she couldn't answer aloud, her voice brushed through his thoughts like a promise made of wind. I'm still here. Tears burned his eyes. He turned toward the emptiness and smiled bitterly. Then I'll find a way to bring you back. Lyra's shadow shivered, part sorrow, part joy. She could feel his pain, his fire, his defiance, and she whispered back through the bond, a vow carried on the night breeze. Then I'll wait, my Alpha, until the stars forget to rise. The wind died. The world stilled. And for the first time since the curse began, the goddess herself looked down from the moon and hesitated, because even divine law cannot silence love that refuses to die. The night sky bled silver. Every star trembled, every shadow bowed. The moon hung above the world like an unblinking eye, cold, ancient, watching the storm that was about to break its peace. For the first time in centuries, the balance between the realms was cracking. Not from magic, not from war, but from love. Rael Thornhart, the Alpha King once chosen by the moon, now stood against it. The same divine power that crowned him was the one he had sworn to destroy. He no longer wore armor. He no longer wore a crown. The man who once ruled thousands now carried only one thing. Her name, Lyra. Her heartbeat pulsed through his soul like a ghost of light, faint but alive. He could feel her everywhere, in the air, in the wind, in the blood that still refused to obey death. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her standing just beyond reach, watching him through the veil that separated their worlds. He had vowed to find her. And now he would. Even if it meant ending the sky itself. The old moon temple had become his fortress. Once filled with prayers and silver fire, it now burned with war. Runes were carved into its pillars, glowing crimson. Ancient magic, forbiddance, primal, pulsed in every stone. Wolves knelt before their king, their eyes silvered by the same power that once cursed him. The kingdom whispered his name with fear now. They said the Alpha had gone mad, that he was calling to the dead, that he was raising an army to fight the goddess herself. They were right, because love had driven him past madness into something greater, something divine. The night before his rebellion, he stood alone in the great hall. The moonlight fell across his face like a wound. His chest glowed faintly, the mark of their blood bond still alive, still burning. He closed his eyes, whispering her name once more. Her shadow appeared beside him, faint, fragile, trembling like smoke. She reached out. He felt her, barely, like warmth at the edge of frost. I feel you, he whispered. But I can't touch you. And through the bond, her voice came soft as wind, then burned the distance between us. When dawn never came. The kingdom knew something had changed. The moon had turned crimson again. The winds carried howls that shattered glass. And from the temple, the light of the old gods flickered, fading under a new, darker glow. Rael walked out from the gates, his wolves behind him. Every heartbeat pounding in rhythm to the war drums that no one dared to sound. He had gathered relics, forbiddance even to speak of, pieces of the moon's fallen light, shards of the ancient mirrors that once bridged heaven and earth. With them, he would tear the veil open. The high priestess, once his ally, now stood at the foot of the temple steps. Tears streaked her face. Do you even understand what you're doing? She cried. Rael didn't answer. He didn't need to, because above them the sky was splitting. The air screamed as the first strike fell. Lightning, black as ink, ripped across the heavens. The temple shook, the mountains roared. Rael raised his hands, blood running down his palms, eyes burning gold and silver. Every ounce of power the moon had ever given him, he turned against it. The sky cracked open. The stars themselves seemed to fall. The veil trembled. The bond flared, and in that storm between worlds she appeared. Lyra. No longer shadow, no longer ghost. She stood in the light of the rupture, her body formed of moonfire and darkness, her eyes bright with the fury of the divine. For the first time he saw her again, truly saw her. And in that single heartbeat, the war stopped existing. The world could have ended, and he wouldn't have noticed. He reached for her. She stepped forward, the ground beneath her turning to silver flame. Their hands met in the space between realms, their blood marks igniting, merging, glowing brighter than the moon itself. Every curse, every bond, every chain broke in that touch. The goddess screamed through the sky. You cannot exist together. The balance will die. Rael's voice thundered in answer, shaking the world itself. Then let it die. The light exploded. Every star vanished. The moon shattered into fragments of white fire. For a moment, there was nothing, and then silence. The kind that only comes when creation itself stops to listen. When the light faded, the battlefield was gone. No temple, no sky, no gods, only a valley bathed in quiet silver. Rael stood at its center, bare-chested, his wounds closed, his breath steady. In his arms lay Lyra, alive, real, warm. Her eyes fluttered open, reflecting the fractured pieces of the moon above them. The curse was gone. The bond was whole. But the world around them had changed. The sky no longer belonged to the goddess. The moon had dimmed. The stars were silent, and defying the divine. They have rewritten the law itself. Years passed. The world healed, though never the same. The wolves still howled to the moon, but their prayers now carried two names instead of one, Rael and Lyra, the Alpha King, and the Queen of Shadows. Some say they still walk among their people, hidden beneath the veil of night, watching over those who dare to love as they did, fiercely, fearlessly, beyond reason. Others say they became the moon and the shadow themselves, the light and the dark that dance across every night sky, chasing each other forever but never apart again. And when the wind blows through the forest on the night of the last moonrise, you can hear them, two voices. One vow, even if the heavens burn, I will find you again.